View Network. Johnny A speaking. And if you're not familiar with me, then this is your introduction. I am the voice that YouTube MMA desperately needs. For far too long, we've had people that are carbon copies of each other, that are NPCs of one another. They say, think, talk, walk, act, behave the exact same way, and no one really seems to have the balls to really say what they have to say. So allow me to be the first. And not to sound like a broken record, not to sound like I'm parroting the sayings of everyone across the internet and sort of reiterating the same thing that's been repeated over and over and over again. But it has to be said, this homoerotic relationship between Jon Jones and Dana White is getting in the way of the UFC heavyweight division. And now when I say that, it almost seems like a joke, like I'm being ironic, because for the longest time, the UFC heavyweight division has been largely known as the weakest of all the divisions in the UFC, all the weakest male divisions in the UFC. But saying that really puts into perspective how bad the situation is. You see, Tom Aspinall currently is the longest reigning interim champion of all time. He has beaten Renan Barão's record. I believe he's even tied with the same amount of interim defenses as Renan Barão, which is really saying something. And on the other hand, you have Jon Jones, who will have had the longest reign as UFC champion, UFC heavyweight champion, surpassing Cain Velasquez's record of 896 days in less than 2 months. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, you have Dana White glazing, guzzling, swallowing every chance he gets, it seems like. Well, you could be at a press conference promoting Topuria versus Oliveira, and out of nowhere, it seems like Dana White will start ear-blistering, crazy, CTE, psychotic rant. Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. You put anyone in a room with Jon Jones is walking out. Followed by like a 10-minute delirious, half-drunk diatribe that us MMA fans have heard way too often recently. What's up with that? You know? And here's the thing. Here's the thing with Dana and Jon. I truly believe that they are in a homosexual relationship. There's no other explanation to it. You know, there just isn't. And it would explain these sort of CTE sounding rants. And saying Jon Jones is the GOAT at this point for Dana is more or less like a safe word for Jones not to be too rough. He's got to reel him back. Jones is getting a little too Diddy-ish. We don't condone Diddy tactics here. So, you know, when nearly every MMA pundit and personality is calling out this PD using, wife beating, coke sniffing, Cialis taking, Diddy party participating, baby oil using fraud for being the biggest duck the sport has ever seen, and calling him to be stripped. And hey, there's a link to the Strip Jon Jones petition in the description. Go check that out. It's nearly at 200K signatures. Like most petitions, it likely won't lead anywhere, but it's a testament to see how many people just believe that he needs to be stripped for the good of this division, GOAT or not. The certain agendas that the UFC try to push despite every flaw and contradiction. But it shouldn't be any surprise. As mentioned before, Jon Jones has a history of ducking opponents. You know, he ducked Francis Ngannou for years. And this is just sort of goes back to Dana White. Because when Jon Jones was bulking for heavyweight for 3 years, not a peep, every, little Twitter rant every now and then, Dana White was recorded on tape saying that, You could say you want to fight, but do you really? You know, these indirect sort of shots at Dana White, or at John Jones rather. And it was only until Francis Ngannou beat Cyril Gane and decided he no longer wanted to be part of the UFC because they wouldn't allow him to co-promote himself. He wanted to go box Tyson Fury. He wanted to go box Anthony Joshua. He got that when he signed with the PFL, but I digress. It was only after that sort of conflict and contractual negotiations between the UFC and Francis Ngannou that the narrative changed. Now, of course, John Jones came back 3 years and he submitted Cyril Gane, who looked like he had just been stuffed with a wad of cash to throw the fight. I mean, Francis Ngannou looked like a D1 wrestler against Cyril Gane. I mean, and this was Ngannou with no knees. So for John Jones to see that, his mouth must have been watering. You know, I mean, not for the reason you think. Well, maybe for the reason you think, but also because he saw an easy matchup. Same thing he saw with Stipe Miocic. So John Jones, he comes back, fair play, submits Cyril Gane within a round. And now the whole narrative changes. Dana White says he does the same thing to Francis. Dana is so fickle. He only cares when he has stock in the company. Now that John Jones has sort of more or less made Cyril Gane look like fodder as compared to Francis's performance, he's the guy. He's the baddest man on the planet, even though he wanted nothing to do with Ngannou when Ngannou was in the UFC. So Dana White's opinion changes on a dime. He waited for Cyril Gane 3 years, avoided Francis, already mentioned. You know, Cyril Gane at this point is really more of an actor than he is a UFC fighter, because he's been in more shows on Netflix than fights in the past 3 years. And then a geriatric Stipe. He waits after Tom Aspinall had won the belt, claiming that the Stipe Miocic fight was already made, but the fact that it wasn't set in stone. It's just what he was calling for. And Tom Aspinall, if you want to get technical, has been champion for 75% of Jones' actual heavyweight championship reign. So, to put in perspective, you have someone who called out a geriatric, pretty much retired. I mean, the Jones fight was really just a formality. Let's be honest. Stipe has been long since retired. Honestly, I say he should have retired after the DC fights, if not the Ngannou loss. So he comes back. He beats an old geriatric Stipe, diaper-wearing, cane-waddling, shitting his pants in the old folks' home Stipe. Nurse got to clean him up. And then that's it, you know? Of course, he's throwing out some ideas like, give me Alex Pereira, give me Derek Lewis, I think he even said Jamal Hill at one point. And now he's been heard on this blog, you know, talking to one of his old teammates, saying more or less like, I'm done. That's what he was quoted. And a lot of people have speculated whether that meant he's going to retire or whether he's just done with the conversation. You know how like a mid-20s sort of baby mom with 3 different kids, she gossips with a friend over FaceTime. They're talking about something and she's like, I'm done, girl, I'm done. People don't know if he meant that or actual retiring. But the longer this waits out, the more it sort of just poisons the division and makes the sport a joke. What was said is that the UFC, by John Jones, he has claimed that the UFC has not told him or told us his plans, which puts more shade on him. And I'm willing to bet that the UFC said that was okay. That it was okay for him to sort of shift the blame, to sort of protect his legacy. But then you have an interim champion who's steamrolled everyone he's fought outside of that weird Curtis Blades first fight, which he redeemed just most recently. And now we're sort of stuck in a state of limbo. You know? And people are rightfully holding Jon Jones accountable. And to Jon Jones, really, like the fact that you have eaten, fingered, and penetrated more asses in the last few years than you beat says something about your championship reign with only one defense, nearly tying Cain Velasquez's all-time record of holding the belt for a consecutive amount of days. But now there's talk. There's talk of Tom Aspinall fighting Ciryl Gane. But that puts them into a bit of a hole because admittedly Jones doesn't have much left in the sport, according to himself and several others. So answer me this. Just how in the hell do you even promote Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall? The interim champion who's destroyed everyone in his path. The man that has the current champion running and hiding like a 9 o'clock USADA test against the guy who said champion choked out and submitted in less than a minute. The same man who won a robbery decision against Volkov. Is that really going to sell out a venue? I mean, maybe it will because heavyweight fights are exciting, but that's the kind of promotion you're dealing with here with the UFC. You know, that's the kind of promotion that you're sort of forced to broadcast. I mean, people will pay for it. Don't get me wrong. You will have idiots out there that will pay $80 for that. The idiots by, certain hardcore fans. The rest of us will just stream it. But that just goes to show because the UFC charges $80 per pay-per-view regardless of who's main eventing. And that is what is going to be the main event. Likely promoted as the interim title defense. This sport's becoming worse than boxing at this point. Like, what are we to do here? No one cares. Dana White least of all, and we all know that. At this point, Dana is just a figurehead, told to spout whatever propaganda by the powers that be. And as far as the powers that be go, well, that's a topic for another day. But Jon Jones is in a bit of a lose-lose position. He either fights Tom Aspinall, rolls the dice against a young prime heavyweight, or take your ball, your two little balls, and your Cialis needing dick, and you go home satisfied with all you've done, and that's fine. You want to go bang ladyboys in Thailand? You want to go finger other men's asses? Hey, it's Pride Month. Listen, all respect to Pride Month. I don't get down with, that kind of stuff, but respect to people who do. And respect to Jon Jones for being so forthcoming about it. But if that's what you want to do, we've established a legacy unlikely to ever be replicated. But here's the thing. You can't hold up a division. You can't hold up a division because you and Dana are giving each other reach-arounds and sucking each other's dicks. It doesn't work like that. This is a business. And you can only show the same clip from 10 years ago. You choking out Lyoto Machida. You finishing Shogun. And that's worn off. What have you done for me lately? This is what this business is. What have you done for me lately? People say it all the time. You're only as good as your last fight. And yes, the Stipe Miocic performance was dominant, but you beat an old man. You beat a retired old man who was on his way out long before you even had the fight. A man who's shitting in his diapers. Come on, dude. And he was getting hit clean in that fight. Go back. Slow, plotty man, Stipe. Connecting clean on Jones' chin, and Jones even ran away for a little bit. I don't understand it. Just imagine this. Imagine 10, 15 years ago, Jon Jones, young, hungry, up-and-comer, future of the division, rising his way through the ranks. And you got Shogun, who, by the time Jones fought him, was well past it. War-torn from pride, been in several wars. Just said, nope, not doing it. Imagine Lyoto, Rashad, Rampage, Shogun, all these guys who, for lack of a better term, were kind of washed by the time they came to the UFC, or had a lot of mileage on them by the time that John Jones had fought them. And they just said, no, I don't like it. Oh, to quote John Jones, no, I don't like him. He's an asshole. I don't really want to give him business. Because that's what you sound like. You sound like a basic bitch that took a good picture. Now she's flexing that she's the shit and she doesn't want to give anyone the time of day. You're a basic bitch who took a good picture and that's all there is to it. But I digress. The situation is among the saddest case of ducking since, like, Nico Montoya and Valentina Shevchenko. And there comes a time where you need someone to take a stand. Tell John Jones what it is and put their nuts on the table, because a wise man once said, defend or vacate. It's a sad story about a man, is that he became a title cuck and now he's a joke on an 8-fight losing streak. And if you don't know what a title cuck is, stay tuned and you'll learn. We owe it to Tom Aspinall to not become a memory, to not be forgotten. And if John Jones doesn't get his signature signed on the dotted line, doesn't want to fight, that's okay. Promote Tom Aspinall to undisputed champion and be done with it. I mean, at this point, if you're John Jones, you just got to weigh your options. What's worse for your legacy? A devastating possible KO loss? Or vacating and leaving? And leaving that sort of mystery in the air of, oh, maybe he could have won. Maybe he could have used his wrestling or just used his experience in the championship rounds. But he's not going to. We all need to band together. And we all need to demand justice. So go to the link in the description and sign the petition, because it's duck hunting season. And we need justice for Tom Aspinall.